Everyone should feel safe. Not some people, all people should feel safe. At our hospitals, which will be required to adopt safeguards concerning law enforcement's presence at healthcare facilities. At courthouses, where those ordered to appear in court for jury duty, a traffic ticket, or other businesses will be protected from extrajudicial abuse and detention. And on our college campuses and daycare centers, which will now adopt policies to protect students and children in their care, including protection against disclosing a family's real or perceived immigration status. In this bill, we're also creating a private right of action to enforce these protections. We're adding teeth to this bill with that private right of action.
Our Bivens action is not limited to federal officers. It is limited to, there is no limitation. It applies to any person. So we look at what Bivens does under federal law, and apparently we think that's a good idea to bring it to state law, but we don't put in the same protections that exist with Bivens suits. What will be the consequences by not following that practice? The answer is, we don't know. What individuals are going to be subject to civil liability that today we're not even thinking they would be subject to that liability? What violations of constitutional law that we may not even be thinking about today will individuals be subjected to liability for violating? This is too broad and it goes too far. We are attempting through this bill to place restrictions on federal law enforcement officers. We have also placed our state and local law enforcement officers in jeopardy of civil liability. Under our United States Constitution, the federal government is supreme. The ability for us as a state to impose civil liability on federal officers is highly dubious. So when a federal court decides that that portion of this act is unconstitutional, the only people we'll have been exposing to civil liability will be our local and state law enforcement officers, completely defeating what was described as a purpose of this bill. This bill goes too far, it is too broad, and there will be grave consequences to our state if it is.
We have good people in law enforcement that dedicate their lives to the service of others. They're your mothers, your fathers, your brothers, your sisters, your aunts, your uncles, and your friends. They are white, black, Hispanic, and every other race. They took an oath. The oath is to support the Constitution of the United States of America, first. The state of Illinois, second. And when it comes to it, it's the first part of that oath that takes over. We cannot continue to demonize law enforcement, all of law enforcement, for their sins of a few.
This legislation requires daycare centers to adopt policies to ensure families are not excluded or discouraged from participating in daycare programs based on their actual or perceived immigration status. We want daycare centers to establish a written plan of action, establish procedures for seeking consent from parents before releasing a child's information, and making sure to formalize late pickup protocols, ensuring children are safely released to designated adults. This bill will not put any additional financial burden on any of these child care providers. This legislation, what it does is give centers clear procedures and protection for children in emergencies.
Mr. Speaker, do you agree with Governor Pritzker that you want federal law enforcement to work with local law enforcement to get rid of criminal illegal aliens?
Let me begin by answering that question with telling you I don't believe anyone is an illegal alien. That's a terrible term to use about anyone.
It's a legal term.
It's not a legal term. They used to call black people slaves legally, and it was wrong. Let's stop dehumanizing people. Let's start treating people right. Language matters. Let's treat people with respect and humanity. And I agree with Governor Pritzker that we should fight like hell to protect people's constitutional rights and their due process rights. Next question.
Okay. Next question. Do you believe or do you agree with Governor Pritzker that local law enforcement should work with federal law enforcement on immigration issues?
I believe, as the original sponsor of the Trust Act in 2017, which was passed by this august body and signed by a Republican governor, that law enforcement should follow the Trust Act.
Other nations have chosen to send some of the worst of the worst. I am not saying that everyone who has come here illegally is a bad person. I don't believe that. But we have laws and we have process. And if anybody should believe in following the laws that are passed by a governmental body, it should be the very people that are right here.